Back in the 90s, Army of Darkness was one of my absolute favorite films that I just watched on loop. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 4 Evil Dead films from the least best to the best. Come get some. Hi, my name is Sean, and I started this channel because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place. Consider clicking that subscribe button. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of all 4 Evil Dead movies. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. With that said, one more thing before we get started. I've done a whole bunch of horror franchise rankings over the years, whether you're talking about It, Conjuring, Chucky, Freddy, Jason, Halloween. I've done a ton of them. You can check them out right up here in this playlist once this video's done. And let's get started. Coming in least best place is Army of Darkness. As I said in my intro to this, of all these movies, this is the one that I've rewatched the most times, quoted the most times, and during the course of my life had the most fun watching. Though it is in last place in this ranking, I still absolutely love this movie and have very fond memories of watching it with my buddies, dressing up as Ash for Halloween. However, rewatching it over the last month, it's the one that's probably aged the worst for me.
This is my boomstick!
Now, at its core, this is just Sam Raimi letting out all of his influences. You, of course, have got the horror in the mix, but then you have this Arthurian type of legend element to it. Then you have a bunch of action movie cliches, and then this one just goes full, all-out slapstick humor with what it does with things. I mean, he's just pulling from all over the place and squishing it into this movie that is truly original in and of itself and very much a product of Sam Raimi and all of his influences. Of course, this is also a movie that just lets Bruce Campbell do his thing.
Groovy.
With all the cocky charm, ignorance, the physical comedy. I mean, this is Bruce Campbell sliders cranked all the way up to 11. Every single line that he delivers is some sort of quotable one-liner that I quoted on loop back in the late 90s. So many things about this movie that absolutely still work. And then there's other aspects to it of just some of the visual effects, some of what they went for. It's almost feels like they were trying to make a bad movie that was like, are you in on the joke with what we just did? Because it's just so ludicrous. The effects so shoddy at certain points in time that it can be kind of frustrating. And it's a movie that exists to create the scenario for all the gags and the gimmicks, more so than trying to really tell this kind of fully compelling story. So I think some of that holds it back a little bit, but it's also a difficult movie to review and rank when it's so designed to be this distinct expression of who Sam Raimi is, and it's not really trying to be evaluated on normal terms. It's like a movie designed to become a cult classic or a cult legend, and that's what it's done. In third place is Evil Dead 2013. This is a movie I was pretty skeptical about when they announced it. I wasn't quite sure how someone else besides Sam Raimi could tackle this franchise, and were they gonna try and copy his sense of humor from parts 2 and 3 or go back to the original? Well, right out of the gate from the first trailers that they put out, it was very clear they were going to the tone of the original film, and even some of the imagery in it, like a tongue getting cut. I still remember the first time I saw that image in the trailer. Beyond that, the movie kicks off, and just the way the opening sequence is designed, you know this movie is not messing around at all. It is tense from the beginning all the way until the end. And what I think the movie did probably wisely is it found a way to add to kind of the character dynamics. They added just a little bit more plot into the mix about this drug withdrawal, and there's a long history of these characters and broken trust and her failing in the past and a brother that's left and he's come back. And I think putting all of that into the mix makes it so that you can have more depth to the characters and know who they are better without needing to make the plot much more complicated. At the core of an Evil Dead movie, it's a cabin in the woods film where you just want people getting hacked up as they become possessed. And this movie has just enough plot for that to happen, but it also adds that character depth so you care about what's happening with them. And it also adds some freshness to the franchise beyond just doing what had been done before. And they also, inside of that, were able to give some reasons as to why the people stayed a little bit longer than you might have thought was wise. If anyone else was in this scenario, when some weird stuff happened, you would just leave. But they kind of had a reason with the drug withdrawal, the lies from the girl, and just enough layers, I think, to put something new in the mix. Beyond that, I mean, this is just a relentlessly brutal film with the way the gore has happened, the way that right as you have a moment of hope, someone has a victory, then it's taken back from you immediately, but you also, without it going full Bruce Campbell, finds a way to have just a little bit of kind of the heroic horror type stuff with someone wielding a chainsaw to battle possessed people and stuff like that. So this is one of all these, it's the one that I've watched the fewest times, but every time I watch it, I'm like, wow, that's actually a very well-made remake that had new things to say, that continues to be horrifying while telling a familiar story. Our runner-up is The Evil Dead, the original film that kicked off this franchise. By far the smallest budget of all these films, but still manages to be unbelievably creepy and unsettling from the very beginning. The opening shots, you just get this odd vibe as they drive up to this cabin, and that does not let up until the credits are over. This is almost an example of a film where, for me, the practical effects, the low budget way they had to do things almost makes it kind of grosser to me. They're so strange in the color choices and the way the makeup looks, and everything is just off about everything with these creepy monsters, and it makes it so much scary. Right out of the gate, Sam Raimi just had a knack for finding a way to make things odd and weird, and knowing how to just linger on shots as you have these cackling witch creatures in the basement just pushing up the cellar door, and it just sits on it for so long, and other shots of their reactions are too long of a shot of limbs just twerking around on the ground and stuff like that. It's just freaky and weird and off-putting. While it doesn't have the most in-depth plot, it very efficiently uses what it does have to create that horrifying terror that you want to feel. Now, once it's a movie that's 40 years old, that was very low budget. Some of the acting here, definitely not the best. Some of the stunt work here, definitely not the best. But does it deliver the experience that it's going for? Is it an achievement in filming? Of course it is. It's one of the iconic Cabin in the Woods stories that created the scenario to which we need to make the movie Cabin in the Woods to deconstruct the entire genre. So this is one that every time I put it on, it's only late at night, and every time, it's pretty freaky. But in first place for me is Evil Dead 2. This is the movie in the franchise that takes all of the elements that make these movies work and combine them in one.
Swallow this.
It functions as a cabin in the woods story that has gore, has limbs being cut off, demon possession, people reciting out of the Book of the Dead, the Necronomicon, but it also is jam-packed with Sam Raimi-isms and his sense of humor. This is where you can really see Sam Raimi coming into his own, not just trying to tell a horror story, but like pull all of his influences and put them on screen. And that's really what he's been known for ever since this film, that it's not as simple as one genre, because you can even see the Three Stooges influences in his Spider-Man movies. And beyond that, the movie does probably wisely functions both as a little bit of a remake of the original, but it's also really a sequel. It simplifies, condenses the events of the first film into about the first 10 minutes of this one, and then it expands and continues onward upward from there. While still relatively a low budget, it's been expanded enough that they can do bigger things, go deeper in with the mythology, and just provide an open playground for Bruce Campbell to go wild on screen. This is another place for him to just showcase his ability to be kind of fun, charismatic, physical comedy, the action hero, all of it. And another one like Army of Darkness that's just jam-packed with quotable moments.
Groovy.
Iconic sequences where he cuts off his hand, attaches a chainsaw to it, he's running around with a double-barrel shotgun. This movie is the one that has all of this stuff that I love from this franchise, balanced so well. And so for me, it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video and want more of my horror rankings, check out that playlist right over there. Like I said, I've gone through The Shining, It, Chucky, Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, done a ton of them. All of them right over there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.